One of the bullish cases for Coinbase is not that they're going to be the place that everybody's going to be trading cryptocurrencies long term. Frankly, I think that's a distraction from the better growth opportunities that are off the exchanges. This is all the infrastructure that Coinbase is building. I think of it a little bit like AWS for the blockchain, combined with Google's identity products on the blockchain, with JP Morgan, a bank. And there's so many things that Coinbase can bring together. One of the things that's interesting with this new administration and the pro-crypto stance that they've taken is some of the ways that there's possibilities to innovate on the blockchain, including moving stock trading to the blockchain. As an investment channel, this is important not only for me as a Coinbase shareholder, but also as an investor. This could change the way that we invest in things long term. I'm going to go through what we know so far about potentially tokenizing securities and where this may be going long term. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. Let's start by looking at some of the news. And this is based on information from the CFO. The new SEC Crypto Task Force could open the door for Coinbase to tokenize the Coinbase stock, and other securities. And this is something that happened last week, but there is speculation that it's going to be at least possible to now tokenize securities like stocks, like bonds. This is something Coinbase tried to do when they went public. However, they say here regulatory hurdles, including the lack of U.S. exchange licenses to trade security tokens and the need for additional approvals, forced the company to abandon the plan in 2021. So what in the world is tokenizing securities? Coinbase does go through this a little bit on its site. And basically what it is you take a security, which is just ownership of some sort of asset, and you turn that into a token, a certain number of tokens, and divide it up into a bunch of different pieces. And then just like a stock, you could add or subtract tokens long term. So in theory, you could tokenize almost anything. You could tokenize the ownership of a baseball card. You could tokenize the ownership of a YouTube channel. You could tokenize the ownership of bonds in Coinbase itself. I'll go through that in just a little bit. But it's possible that the entire ecosystem be more efficient using blockchain technology. This is really what I see with Coinbase itself is it's leaning into the advantages of the blockchain and how that can be disruptive to existing technologies and all the fees and infrastructure that go into financial transactions currently. So could that be a better way to do things, speed up transactions that they could close immediately? So instead of having a day or two before you actually get the stock that you bought, now you could close that transaction immediately and increase transparency. So they go through some of these use cases and sort of some of the things you want to think about. Risk reduction, that goes to the immediate settlement of transactions. This isn't necessarily a big deal when you're talking about public markets, but this is a big deal when you're talking about private markets. So if you're going to tokenize something like a private company, you want to raise money, you want to raise $1 million to start a new business, let's say, you come to an agreement with a party that's going to invest in your company. If they don't actually bring the check eventually, you don't actually get that money. So you could actually settle those transactions immediately. There's transparency on who owns things. There's also liquidity. So again, a private company would be a perfect example of how in the world do you sell that? That's a very costly transaction. If it's possible to do that on the blockchain using blockchain technology and everything, and you could include everything like financials there, that could be an attractive way to raise money and to actually denote ownership of assets. And of course, there's the cost and efficiency. This isn't something we see in the stock market because you can make trades for basically no cost at this point, but you do see it in things like bonds. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. I'm going to just show one example here. This is from public.com, and this is just showing this is showing one of Coinbase's corporate bonds. So you can buy corporate bonds. But typically, individual investors don't do that very often. They just go through things like ETFs because it's just an easier way to invest. But you can buy these bonds if you would like to. It's just that they're a little bit difficult to actually acquire depending on your brokerage. And a lot of them are not particularly liquid. So this one you can see right now in 2022, this was trading for 50, 60 cents on the dollar. Today, the yield has dropped and this is now trading for almost $100, but look at this bid ask. So the bid ask is, what could you sell this bond for? So you could sell this bond for $98.63. The par value for that would be $100. And the ask would be $101.84. That's because there's not a lot of trading going on. There's not a lot of transparency in the bond market. But if you move some of these things to the blockchain, that could open up liquidity. This is actually a fairly liquid bond. If you want to look at bonds but there are a lot of bonds that are not very liquid, that are not traded very often. If you actually want to buy them, you got to have something like a prime brokerage. Go to that broker, say, hey, can you make a market in this certain bond? They're going to come back to you with a price. It's a very convoluted process, but this is what like hedge funds are doing all day long. Could you move that to the blockchain, make everything more efficient and more transparent and more liquid for everyone? I think this is one of the ways that Coinbase could help update the financial system. This is something that Brian Armstrong talks about all the time. This is fundamentally what the company is trying to do, and this is a great example of how they could do it. And I'll just give a little background here. This is a chart that shows the non-transaction revenue for Coinbase. If they have something like the securitization of assets and securities, this is where some of that revenue would fall. Maybe some of it would fall in the transaction revenue, but this is not going to be crypto trading. This is going to be more securities trading. So it would probably be in these non-crypto trading areas. And this is where I think ultimately the most growth is for Coinbase, because it's not YOLO trading and up and down with the price of Bitcoin. It's going to be a more fundamental disruption and innovation using the blockchain to update the financial system. That's exactly what the company is trying to do. And I think this is a phenomenal way to do that. We'll see where this goes. But I do think if the SEC and regulators start to write rules that make it easier for companies to raise money, for investors to invest or sell their stakes in certain companies, whether they're public or private, that would ultimately be a good thing for everybody, because I think that would ultimately be a good thing, could be a great thing for Coinbase as the intermediary there in the company that's enabling a lot of these transactions. A lot of this could happen on the Base blockchain. That's another area where they're going to be generating a lot of revenue going forward. So this is the kind of innovation that I do want to see from Coinbase. May not be something that actually hits the income statement or the balance sheet in the next couple of years, but if they are able to innovate and update the financial system, including things like securities trading over the next 5, 10, 20 years, this is going to be a huge opportunity for Coinbase. So something to keep an eye on as an investor. But let me know what you think about potentially trading stocks or bonds on the blockchain. Leave those thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.